Hello everyone, Kevin Carrillo here, and welcome to another episode of the Cannabinoid Connect podcast. My guest today is David Lonsdale, CEO of CanaFarma. So you said Dallas is home, but you're in New York. So you're a Texas native?
Well, with an accent like this, Kevin, I don't think you can call me a Texas native, but I've lived in Texas since 1989, and I do call Texas home. And both of my children live there. My son and his wife are in Little Elm, and my daughter's in McKinney. So yeah, Dallas is home.
Dallas is home. I misspoke when I said native, obviously, with your accent. So I'm sensing European, maybe across the pond. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in London in England and came over to the United States back in 1974. Did my master's work at Cornell and somehow just never made it back.
Wow. Well, that's awesome. And I'm familiar with Cornell. I went to Bucknell, and so I wrestled for a year at Bucknell, and they're in the same conference, the EIWA. So
that I didn't know it was the same conference, but yeah, was the Cornell wrestling team any good?
They were, and they are tough. They're always usually top 10 the past decade or so, and they've always produced really high caliber individuals. One being Kyle Dake, who is the only NCAA wrestler to win in 4 different weight classes. I don't think
wow
on that. Yeah. So he's on the Olympic circuit right now, trying to win a gold in Tokyo. So we'll see how that goes. Shout out
good luck. Good luck to him.
Exactly. Well, David Lonsdale, I'm happy to have you on. For those listening, David is the CEO of CanaFarma. It's a vertically integrated enterprise that is completely in control of its hemp oil products all the way from seed to counter, right? So before we dive into your company, David, and all the great things that are happening within your company, let's first get a sense of who you are and what your background is. So, what did you do previously before entering the hemp space?
When I left Cornell, I actually joined McDonnell Douglas in their technology arena, and I helped them build out their European IT capabilities. In fact, when I was at McDonnell Douglas, I was involved in the first instance of EDI, electronic data interchange, being established. I then joined Dun & Bradstreet. I ran the software and systems division for AC Nielsen, which was the beginning of big data, very disruptive technology. After 20 years in corporate America, I switched gears completely. I built 4 venture-funded technology companies. One of them I sold to Microsoft, another to Sun Microsystems. I had one that failed, so I've seen both sides of that spectrum, but very much disruptive technology. After that, I spent 10 years running an investment bank, so I learned a great deal about the M&A world and raising money and so forth. And then I was asked to step in as the CEO of CanaFarma. And to be honest with you, I hadn't paid a lot of attention previously to this CBD, the cannabinoidal market. And as I looked at it, I agreed with what the Financial Times wrote about a year ago. And that is, what an opportunity to be stood at the beginning of a massive new market that we have literally brought into being through legislation. So that's what brought me to running CanaFarma, Kevin.
I could totally see that, and we've talked about that on the podcast before, where it's like we're in a very unique position right now to be at the forefront of an industry that's barely figuring itself out. The only other example that I can think of, but I was too young to be a player in that space, was the internet boom, the tech boom that you're mentioning, big data and whatnot. So you're kind of seeing it again in the hemp space.
So given that I'm a little bit older than you, Kevin, you're just making me feel like an old man by saying you weren't involved at the internet boom. Look, to put it in perspective to people who may be listening, There are many, many different forecasts about the size of the hemp oil CBD market. But what we can say is in 2019, in very rough terms, the market was almost $3 billion. What's projected is a compound annual growth rate. And again, you'll get all sorts of different projections, but it seems to be fairly comfortable to say somewhere in the 40 to 50% compound annual growth. So over the next 5 years, that $3 billion market is going to be north of 20 billion, which is a massive, massive market. And I'm frankly not even sure that underestimates the size. And we'll talk about why I think the market's going to grow quickly. But I seriously believe in a few years, it will be a $20 billion plus market.
Well, and with that projection, are you also taking into account the potential when it comes to industrial hemp? So material goods, hempcrete, the use of fiber and herd to produce material goods. That's a whole separate game, right?
It is an entirely separate game, and no, I'm not speaking to that. It's going to be very interesting to see how the industrial side of hemp develops, but that is not a space I spend a lot of time working on.
Sure. Well, let's dive into it. I mean, you mentioned, why, or give your reasoning why you think that this market is just going to take off, and what are your predictions in the coming years?
So let's start, because there are really no clinical studies about the benefits of CBD or the cannabinoidal spectrum on the human body. However, there is a body of knowledge that is building. In the UK, a report was issued about 6 months ago, and it said, we're not a clinical study, but the overwhelming evidence is that CBD, number one, helps with anxiety. And we can talk about COVID-19 and why that's obviously been very applicable. Secondly, it addresses or eases the nausea that is associated with chemotherapy. And finally, and this one caught me by surprise because I have a personal experience with this, it addresses or relieves the spasticity associated with multiple sclerosis. And someone close to me does have multiple sclerosis and has been using the cream, and goodness me, the spasticity has been reduced dramatically. Wow. So we got that sort of knowledge, but medical science hasn't even begun yet, Kevin, to understand what this is really doing. Why are these benefits occurring? So as medical science starts to find their way forward and understand this, I think we're just going to see an enormous amount of application of the cannabinoidal spectrum from hemp oil as it relates to how it's used in medicine.
Mm-hmm. And that'll also open the doors for us to discover the other cannabinoids found in the plant, right? I mean, we've only kind of scratched the surface there with identifying, I think, 11 or so, or 8, and there's over 150, I've heard. So
you are absolutely correct. CBD is very definitely the predominant cannabinoid in hemp oil, but there are many, and frankly, I think it is around 100, and we do not know the benefits of those either. So, there's going to be a huge amount. We will see, once medical science understands what's going on, we will see big pharma step into this in a big way. And that's another reason, when people ask about what's the future for some of the early companies in the hemp arena, my view is in 4 or 5 years, big pharma will be buying up the key components of the industry.
Mm-hmm. And obviously what's holding the research and the peer review studies back is the scheduling of the cannabis plant, which is Schedule 1, right? I mean, at least in the US. So that's been a real hindrance on learning and evolving with this plant. So once that changes, I think there's real opportunity.
I think so. I mean, we all know that regulation is also, it has to catch up. And frankly, today, when you look at the wide range of tinctures and oils and edibles that are out there, one of the concerns that a consumer should have is, well, which are really science-based and which aren't, and which have good efficacy in terms of the absorption of the body. And as regulatory organizations get involved, at CanaFarma, we welcome that because we are very science-based in what we do.
And I'm glad you brought that up because that was going to be my next point. Is I really appreciate CanaFarma's approach, and you really make the science approach kind of front and center, right? You talk about the efficacy of the absorptions for your chewing gum and your full spectrum hemp oil, but I know that there's more to that process, right? And there's 4 different components of your company. There's the growing side, the extraction side, the R&D side, and the sales and marketing side. So why don't you dive into each of those components and tell us how CanaFarma differentiates itself from others in the market?
Let's be clear about where we are going versus what we've already done. We've had 2 seasons growing so far. We had a great grow cycle last year. And without going into all of the details, Kevin, the quality of what we generated in terms of the amount of CBD was double what many other farms created. And that has to do with a whole range of things, from understanding that the hemp plant does not like moisture, does not like humidity. Therefore, the weeding that we did was absolutely critical. That we ran drip lines to every single plant, and basically took a lot of care over what we grew. So our hemp biomass was of a very rich solution. We are in the process of looking at extraction and building our own extraction capability, but we do not have that yet. As we come over to the product, that's where, we work with a very talented scientist, a chemist, and we are very careful about how we build out our products. You mentioned the chewing gum. Well, the chewing gum is the hemp oil is infused throughout the gum, and therefore it is released over time as you're chewing, and the absorption of the membranes of the mouth is just so much more efficient than eating something and the absorption of the gut. So we've delivered a product that really allows you to have the CBD ingested or absorbed over time in a very natural manner.
Mm-hmm. So I want to step back for a second and talk about each component in a little more detail. So the growing side, you mentioned. So so first off, that's in New York, correct?
It is in upstate New York, which is where we grew this last year. That is correct.
So first off, why New York? I mean, obviously with the 2018 Farm Bill being passed and hemp cultivation being federally legal, what really attracted you to New York compared to other states?
Well, we're based up in the Northeast, and we've said that we will, in all likelihood, grow in neighboring states. But we're very happy being based there. We were one of the first companies to actually get a grow license from the New York State Department of Agriculture, and it's a good state to work in.
And is there any challenges when it comes to like outdoor growing? Obviously, New York gets really cold in the winter. So, I mean, is it very seasonal, or do you guys have greenhouses, or what does your operation look like?
No, it is very seasonal. You're absolutely correct. And we grow during the growing season. New York has one growing season, and last year we planted in the spring and harvested in the fall. And we took the product right from seed and germinating the seedlings, and then planting the seedlings over a 50-acre farm.
50-acre farm. And you've gone through 2 harvests, you said, right?
We are in the process of going through our second growth cycle, so the harvest will be shortly.
Got you. So with that first harvest, have you already gone through the extraction process yet, or like are you starting to sell your products, or are you focused on private label deals right now?
So let's first of all deal with the fact that the price of hemp biomass, of course, has fallen quite dramatically over the last year. And we do not believe that that is going to be the case going forward. So we have stored our hemp biomass so that we can extract the oil at a later point. Today, we obviously get our oil for our products in other ways. We have not yet integrated our own oil into our own products.
Got you. But you know, the path that y'all are taking in terms of wanting to establish your own extraction lab is seems like the right move, and what other companies are kind of gravitating towards, simply because you know the total infrastructure is not there yet. It's too easy to grow this plant, and there's a huge surplus of this hemp, you know, derived CBD flower that's just sitting there right now, because you know we don't have the extraction labs in place to do it. So tell us more about those plans.
Well, you've said it perfectly. I mean, you know, everybody seemed to get into the business of growing hemp, and nobody actually looked at what am I going to do with it when I've got it. So we're already partnered with a company that has extraction capability, which was something it was a smart move on our part to make sure that we did have that capability. But ultimately, we will build out our own extraction capability. That's correct.
Got you. You know, so I recently listened to the Cannabis Economy podcast where you were on with Seth. And you were talking about, or he asked the question, you know, is CannaFarma doing anything with the bast fiber and herd, you know, if it's separated, when growing these plants? You know, is there any plans in the future for y'all to think about industrial hemp and that side of the business, or are you just focused on the therapeutic and medicinal value of the cannabinoids?
So if I recollect, Kevin, when Seth asked that question, I said, Seth, look, because he asked it several times. I said, Seth, let me take this away, because it's not an area I've focused on, and I will go and have a look at it, because he was very interested in that. Well, the fact is, I'm running a high growth company. And since I spoke to Seth, no, sir, I have not spent much time looking at that. So please don't tell Seth that.
He may hear it, but that's fine. I like your transparency. That's good.
Kevin, it will be an area that we look at. But, you know, we are very focused on the range of products that we're bringing to market, and our sales and marketing strategy, and obviously, you know, getting into a position to really grow the business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely, that makes sense. So I also looked at your investor deck, and one thing that really stood out to me was the tagline, and then there was slides that followed to explain it. But the tagline was, "How does a startup sell 200,000 units and achieve 4 million in revenue in its first 6 months?"
You're obviously reading that off one of the slides.
I have to, yeah, I have to have my notes here. I can't remember all this. But you know, tell us about like how that happened, and what is the demand marketing engine, this proprietary software capability that y'all have?
It's probably one of the most valuable parts of CanaFarma Corporation. A couple of our executives have 20 years experience of direct to consumer marketing. And as you pointed out, not all that 20 years is internet based, but they moved onto the internet very early with various products. And what we have is an extremely large affiliate marketing network, people who blog and post and have followers. And with this affiliate marketing network, we will work with them where they will encourage people towards our landing pages, people who are interested in CBD, people who are interested in hemp oil. And we do not pay for leads. We pay for sales. So we have this big relationship with a large affiliate marketing network, and we can literally dial up and dial down the level of sales that we want. Last year, we began in June We had 70,000 sales in the first month, and within 4 months, we were doing close to $1 million a month. And we did, in 6 months, we did $4 million in sales, 200,000 units. Now, we then took the company public, got ourselves ready, and we're about to turn the gas on again onto this marketing engine, the sales and marketing engine. So that's demand-driven marketing. It is literally a very large group of affiliate marketeers who we have in our network and who work with us to help direct traffic, if you want to say. People who have an interest in what we are selling get directed towards us so they can then make an educated purchase decision.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense, and that's pretty common. I mean, especially within social media marketing, the notion of influencer marketing, right, and leveraging other people's audience to generate awareness for your product, and like you said, ultimately drive traffic and sales.
Yep.
So, does CanaFarma have any criteria when it comes to the affiliate marketers that they're bringing on? Or is it just kind of anybody and everyone?
No, this is an organization that's been built up over a number of years. It's been carefully cultivated. We clearly want to get traffic that is quality traffic, that is really interested in sophisticated science-based product. Because, obviously, Kevin, we want people to try our product, buy it, and then realize that there are benefits from it, so they become repeat purchasers. That's the way we're going to build our business.
And do you find the level of understanding the medicinal value of CBD and other cannabinoids? Like, is that known, or is there education that needs to be had first to kind of let people know the benefits?
There is no doubt that people are becoming increasingly well educated, but there's a long way to go. I mean, again, I don't want to go back to medical science and all the work that's got to occur there, but we are in a pandemic at the moment that obviously is horrific. People are anxious, people are worried, and certainly people have the idea that CBD, the cannabinoid spectrum, helps in managing anxiety. And I think that has been one of the aspects of COVID-19. People have reached out for some form of help in terms of that anxiety. And we are an online sales organization, so people don't have to go anywhere. They don't have to go to bricks and mortar. And I think that that's been beneficial towards CanaFarma, and hopefully our products have been beneficial towards people who've been looking for help in that area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no doubt that we've seen sales increase, the demand for CBD products, especially during this pandemic. Like, as you said, it helps alleviate anxiety. And so it's been something that people have been turning to. Speaking of the national pandemic, has this pandemic in any way affected CanaFarma in terms of its operation or sales? It sounds like sales are good because you're established with an e-commerce platform online. So how has the pandemic affected CanaFarma and the industry overall, in your perspective, in your vision?
So one of the things we have to do is report monthly to the exchange, to the Canadian Securities Exchange, a progress report, which we file for and one of the areas that we have to address each month is, how is the pandemic affecting your business? And our answer has been, in terms of the operations of our business, it hasn't affected us very much at all. We have been able to fulfill product, produce product, and of course, as you pointed out, our sales and marketing engine is online. So from CanaFarma's standpoint, we have not seen any negative operational aspects relative to COVID-19. From a sales perspective, yes, while we have seen an increased interest in our products, and we are about to invest fairly heavily in our marketing engine. And we expect to see some significant growth over the balance of the next number of months.
Mm-hmm. And so, you mentioned that CanaFarma is trading within the Canadian exchange, right? So, when did y'all go public, and what was your listing price, and then where are you guys at now?
Very good questions. First of all, it is the Canadian Securities Exchange, the CSE, on which we are listed, and we are also trading on several exchanges in Germany. We didn't have a listing price. When you are a small company and you go out, it truly is, where does the market balance? Where does the market balance you? We were in the 40 to 50 cent range when we came out on March the 19th. Which was right at the beginning of the whole COVID situation.
That was literally the day before everything started tanking. March 20th was kind of that day where, wow. So crazy timing.
We had conversations internally about whether we should delay going out. But Kevin, when you've gone through all the regulatory process, filed your long form prospectus and so forth, it's like, now we're diving in, which is what we did. I was very pleasantly surprised to see our stock price, go up to $1.20 or something. It put us, and we are on the CSE 25 index. We're one of the 25 largest companies on the CSE already. Our stock price has leveled back down more into the sort of 50 cent range. But at the same time, we have not made any real announcements of any significance about, where we're going, our growth, and so on. So I think the stock price will reflect our performance once we start showing people what we're doing.
And are you at this point looking to raise more capital, or, and if so, like what do you want to do with those funds? What is the plan there?
Okay, so yes, we are looking to raise more capital. There's no question about that. I don't know whether it was Seth or some other interview, but I've said very clearly, one of the most important things for any company in the hemp industry right now is a solid balance sheet. You need cash on hand. There are going to be some, casualties in the industry, and there will be buying opportunities for companies to acquire other companies. So we definitely are going to make sure that we have a very strong balance sheet. In terms of our investment, we are, and we've said this publicly, we are looking to build out our own manufacturing facility, and we have a letter of intent signed on a facility in New Jersey. I've discussed with you the fact that we want our own extraction capability. And we are building out product, and of course, inventory costs money. And finally, we will be investing in the sales and marketing engine that we've just discussed. So that basically is the sources and uses of funds.
Mm-hmm. No, I appreciate that straightforward answer. Speaking on the topic of having a strong balance sheet, right, and having cash on hand, for those looking to invest in cannabis companies, right, whether it be on the Canadian exchange or within the NASDAQ, what advice would you give those investors, and what should they look out for?
First of all, make sure that you're investing in a company that is well capitalized, and that's an easy thing to do. Just go to the balance sheet and see what the capitalization looks like, because you need companies that have staying power. Secondly, look for companies who take a science-based approach to what they're doing. We have a presentation. It's 70 pages on the science of what we do with our products, and we are very diligent about that, because ultimately, as regulation comes in, as medical science starts to understand more, those will be the companies who will benefit most, because they will have gone in with the right approach.
Mm-hmm. And when you say, we talk about CanaFarma's scientific approach, like what exactly does that mean? I mean, do you have I'm imagining, scientists in lab coats in a lab and doing various tests and finding different ways to make the absorption rates higher and the efficacy of the cannabinoid levels to be, of course, at their highest. Like, what does that look like?
Well, all of the above. I mean, we have just put out a press release about a floating capsule that we will be launching. The floating capsule floats in your stomach, and the CBD, or the cannabinoid, is on the outside of the capsule. And so for 24 hours, you can have a slow time release into the body. It's a patented technology. We know of nobody else who is doing that, and we think it will change a lot about the way CBD is integrated into the body. So that's the sort of thing. But everything you just mentioned is, we are talking about people in lab coats and who work in a very science-based approach. How we formulate creams, tinctures, and so forth.
Sure. Well, David, is there anything else that you want to talk about? I know we've covered a lot, in terms of CanaFarma and how y'all are looking to grow in the coming years. But anything related to the industry that you want to cover before we end here?
Well, I think we've obviously covered a lot of ground. We think it's going to be a marketplace that's going to explode, or is in the process of exploding. I think, Kevin, it would be nice to meet up with you again in 6 months or a year, so you can grill me on whether or not I've fulfilled on some of the comments I've made.
That'd be great. Yeah, no, I'd love to have you back. And once you've gotten that extraction lab built and the other entities and things you're doing to grow CanaFarma, it sounds like you're on the right path. So I appreciate everything you've shared today.
My pleasure. And Kevin, it is a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day. And thanks everybody for listening. Bye.